This eclipse season is more than just a series of astronomical events. It's a cosmic love story written in the stars. It's an invitation to heal, grow, and transform from the inside out. Join me as we unlock the power to heal not just ourselves, but our relationships with the greater purpose of healing society as a whole. Guided by Venus's energy, we're called to release old wounds and step into a higher vibration of love, beauty, and harmony. So let's crack the code of this eclipse energy and explore how we can rebuild, forgive, rebalance, and reconnect, guiding us to follow our bliss and live our best possible lives. I hope this eclipse season has been illuminating for you. It's been an interesting week. The lunar eclipse has definitely opened up my consciousness a bit more, and in some ways, I'm experiencing some newfound clarities. However, in other areas of life, particularly relationships, there are still experiences to be had and stories to be told before the fog clears. For me personally, it does seem to get more cloudy when Neptune is in retrograde, but that happens for 5 months out of every year, so you kind of get used to it after a while. But since we are between the eclipses, this can be particularly some of the foggiest times in terms of decision making. So if you don't have to make a decision, and if you're feeling some kind of way about it, well, you're right on time. If there's no circumstances forcing you to make a decision that's already made itself obvious, quell the urge to have it all figured out. Because there's a lot more to unfold as we move through and out of this eclipse window. From an energetic perspective, eclipses are unpredictable by nature, but today we're going to look for clues, guidance, and crack the code of the chart for the next eclipse, a solar that happens on October 2nd. The underlying themes of this week are relationships, rebalancing, and reconnection. But quickly, before we do that, I just want to show you another reason why the last eclipse chart was so important. So the actual lunar eclipse that occurred on 9/17, I cracked the code on that one in my last 2 episodes, and we're still very much in that energy. If you're feeling some type of way about the current energies, and spoiler alert, you're going to hear me say that phrase a bit in this episode, because this energy is chock full of feelings in all kinds of ways. But please go back and watch those 2 episodes. I'll put the links down below in the description, because chances are that energy is going to continue to resonate through till the next eclipse. But why is that? So like the sun and moon have definitely shifted since that eclipse. Same with all of the fast-moving personal planets, Mars, Mercury, and Venus as well. But look, as the sun and Mercury both move into Libra, the grand trine will continue to hold, as does the kite. It'll move out of being an Earth-dominant grand trine, meaning that the Libra energy adds the element of air and breaks the 3 points of the trine all being in Earth signs. However, the trine itself and supportive energy is still there, and the kite is still there pointing to Neptune and Pisces. So when I say there's immense healing energy on offer here, I really mean it. Kites don't normally hold for this long, but the fact that it's Pluto and Uranus, which like Neptune are slow outer planets, make this one a very solid and highly specific and important aspect that we need to pay attention to. All 3 of these planets are in retrograde, so it's literally telling us that its message needs to be reviewed rather than simply moved through. The Pluto involvement here is literally giving us instruction in real time to handle the Capricorn to Aquarius transition. It's basically an energetic cheat sheet. And that's why I created Crack the Code, so we can navigate this together and be able to apply these teachings to our everyday lives. We all have individuated lives, so it won't predict exactly how the energy will unfold, but it surely can assist in seeing patterns and navigating life in a way that flows with the energy and what it's trying to show us, rather than fight it and hurt ourselves more. As a grand trine heir myself, information and conscious understanding are what give us the ability to make different choices, face situations for what's in our best interest versus our trauma patterns and automated programming, and allow us to really build the future we want and to follow our bliss together. Keep watching this episode and check out the links in the description below for more ways that we can work together and apply this guidance to your own life. But on that note, let's dig into the solar eclipse chart and see the themes and energies and stories coming up during this next astrological event. So right off the bat, I want to point out here that we have an evolution of the stories that unfolded from the lunar eclipse. Right here, you can see we still have a supportive grand trine at play for this eclipse, but it's a grand trine in all water signs. So the grounded earth energy story has moved into the watery emotional flow. But all the while, the kite trine still holds. It's no longer a kite, and it's no longer attached by aspect to the grand trine of the chart, but instead it's an expansion of the guidance that continues the evolutionary story of our healing and transcendence. Wow. So hold those concepts in mind. But before we look at the aspects, because remember, this is a solar eclipse chart, we are standing here on Earth looking towards the sun. The moon, although a lot smaller, is a lot closer to us. So as it passes by the same sign and degree from an astrological standpoint, it's conjunct, meaning it holds similar themes and energies that play off of each other to tell a larger story. The sun represents our identity and the moon our emotions. As the moon moves between the earth and the sun, it eclipses and blocks the sun from our vantage point. So as the shadow from the moon blocks the light from the earth, energetically, it's like we're facing the shadow of an emotional energy that we either haven't been able to see or really weren't willing to face. When the light returns on the other side of the eclipse, our identities are transformed due to having faced the shadow. And in the process, as it relates to eclipse season and a lunar eclipse, how we feel about the shadow is also transformed. It's a symbiotic connection. So welcome to Libra season coming in hot. Here we have Sun and the new moon conjunct at 10 degrees Libra, which is the Sun degree. So remember earlier when I said you may be feeling numerous types of ways? Well, identifying through emotion is extra highlighted here. Libra is a diplomatic, peace-loving sign ruled by Venus. The events of this eclipse is guided by the Venusian properties of harmony, balance, receiving, and quality of life. I feel like the message and the guidance here is reminding us to make our choices around what feels most fair and balanced. It's Venus, so if we want to receive a life that's balanced and fair, we get to identify as people who prioritize equality. And that ideal needs to include ourselves. 10 degrees is the cusp of the first and second decan, and Libra is the ruler of the 7th house and the sign of relationships. So the nitty-gritty of that is, as we select partners, friendships, and relationships that are driven by our choices, like as opposed to blood family, ancestral, and karmic ties, we get to prioritize our own fairness and equality. Because that's ultimately how we become more peace-led receivers of harmony, by remembering that relationships are our choice. And it's up to us to face, fix, or remove ourselves from any imbalances within them. It's the idea of self-identity, but within the context and construct of a relationship. And the key to that comes in facing our feelings. See my last episode on the lunar eclipse for an in-depth look at that topic. And being conscious and compassionate about what we are choosing. Is it truly aligned with our highest quality of life? Or are we making concessions and excuses to hold on to something out of fear, attachment, trauma, patterns, etc.? Since the moon is a key element here, sometimes this information won't come to us straight up through clarity and mental consciousness, especially with the fogginess of the eclipse. Instead, it can arrive in the form of intuition, especially if you've been burying a lot of things that you just didn't want to look at. The intuition will come in the whispers of our soul, the guidance we all receive in one way or another in those quiet moments. The hesitation when something in a relationship feels off, but you can't quite name it. You don't necessarily need to make an immediate decision, as you may find more clarity as this energy moves through. But pay a lot of attention and make sure to bring compassion and empathy to yourself in your willingness to face this imbalance. It's not easy. Now I'll go into this more in a few minutes when we go into the Grand Trine, but I want to point out that specifically Venus herself is at 11 Scorpio on this chart. 11 nets to the moon degree, so feelings, in the sign of Scorpio, which is excavation. Venus is guiding us through this eclipse to face what's been buried and what needs to be faced. But more on that in a moment. Because we're not done with the eclipse energy story just yet. Because yes, the moon and sun are conjunct as they always are for a solar eclipse. But there are two more elements at play here, adding dimension to the idea of our identity being transformed through our emotions. First, we have Mercury at 11 Libra, and then also South Node still in Libra at 6 degrees. All of these energies are connected and tell a larger story about this eclipse. We have discussed South Node Libra a lot on these episodes, but the goal of our South Node is always to use mastery we've established as the skill on which to build that moves us towards the lessons and mission of our North Node, which in this case is Aries. Now, Libra is an interesting place for a South Node because in some ways it can be disempowering. Libra loves justice, but by nature, Libra is also a lover, not a fighter. So it can have a tendency to give itself away in order to create fairness and justice for others, but forget to include itself in the equation of what that looks like. It's also at the Venus degree, so this is not an action-taking placement. This is moving things around so we can receive justice and fairness, but the key is it's an inside-out job. And then we also have Mercury, thoughts and understanding and communication at the moon degree of Libra. So this expands on the idea that our intuition and emotional intelligence contain important information and clarities that can help expand who we are. That who you know yourself to be can come from the ideals of love and compassion rather than egoic ventures of power. So I've noticed a trend here that's kind of alarming, and I think this eclipse hits on it. I feel like people are falling into the lower octave of Libra, which is superficial judgment and really not uncommon considering the South Node is there. Now, when I say superficial judgment, I don't mean just of each other, I mean within ourselves. I keep seeing posts on social media and in my session space, and man, as humans, we're really freaking hard on ourselves and each other. We want to receive fairness and balance and love. But these energies are telling us that in order to do that in a relationship, we first have to look at the relationship within ourselves. How do we treat ourselves? Do we martyr ourselves for others? Do we judge our emotions harshly and hide from them? All of this energy is in Libra, so especially within relationships. And because we're so saturated in Venus energy here, it's the feminine that continues to struggle to show up for herself. Now, this can be a little hard to admit and look at, but this is for every woman or feminine expressing energy who has ever accepted a misaligned relationship because deep down she felt like she didn't deserve or would never find better. Every feminine who put herself last to be a mom, support a partner, or even a parent, or who didn't include themselves in their equation of fairness. Anyone who's lowered their self-worth to make something that felt misaligned work in a relationship. This eclipse is going to be extra revealing of those limiting beliefs, inner stories, and self-harming ideologies. It's showing you these shadows in no uncertain terms, and it can feel rough. Now, why would it do that? Probably because it's mad at you. Just kidding. It's because it wants to excavate the limiting belief that feminine energy has to martyr herself and put herself last on the priority list in order to maintain balance for everyone else. That is a categorically false narrative, and it hurts humanity to continue to act on that. It's not future forward, and it won't come with us through Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Capricorn and Venus in Scorpio are showing it to us now for the purpose of bringing light and love and compassion. Essentially, to restore balance and equality to all, we have to go through the imbalances within ourselves first. Heal ourselves, and we can guide and heal each other. We get to move closer to each other by clearing the barriers that prevent fairness and harmony. Since Mercury is involved, that includes our inner voice and how we take in and understand information and talk to ourselves, our inner monologues. Now listen, I know there are so many of you out there struggling with these topics right now, and I would love to check out your chart and help align you better with the healing that's on offer here, because it's really that big. But it takes courage and effort to look at the shadows and make different conscious choices. But you don't have to do it alone. And it helps to be able to see your individual nodal path and make decisions that align with the energy so you can be an active co-creator of the world that we're building together. So book a one-on-one, order a written or a video analysis. As part of my own nodal path, it's my honor to serve and help you expand your consciousness. utilizing evolutionary astrology as a tool. Now, back to the guidance of the charts. As is the nature with eclipses, this energy continues to feed the larger story of the nodal axis. South Node Libra opposed North Node Aries. Aries wants us to find our empowerment and bravery and protect vulnerability, protect equality. The actions of Aries, Mars, get to be fueled by the healing power and protection of Libra, Venus. They're working together. So as the feminine starts to be less hard on herself, as she remembers to be more guided and trusting of her emotional intelligence, and as she uses that understanding to speak her voice and find new balance that declines martyrdom and includes herself in the equation, that itself is the path to empowerment. It's a classic story of masculine-feminine balance. Feminine energy in air and water signs provides the information, awakening of consciousness through the intuitive guidance of our emotions. That feeds Mars, the ruler of Aries, with the information and understanding that he needs to passionately go out and build structure and restore balance. He has his assignment. It doesn't come from his ego. It's not reactive. It comes from the feminine. It comes from his passion and heart to protect her, restoring the natural balance. Now, a reminder here, this isn't about girls or boys or genitalia. It's all energy that we house within us already. We are each individually capable and responsible for finding this balance within ourselves. Because wherever there's misalignment within our own internal masculine and feminine energies, that's exactly the energy that we bring out into our relationships, looking for a partner to fill in the gaps for us. Because this is Libra Aries, this is a reminder that through finding ourselves, we get to find our way back to each other. And the way we do that is from empowering ourselves to be protectors of this sacred balance. Ladies, we cannot get there through martyrdom. Men, we cannot get there through egoism and misguided quests of power. We get there by looking within and prioritizing balance, harmony, flow, and love as our key motivators. Together, and actively choosing it as the driving force behind all of our actions. So that in itself is already a ton of guidance. The conjunction and the nodal axis themselves tell the story. But the Grand Trine Water in this chart gives us additional guiding supportive flow that uncovers even more detail and helps us get there. And it couldn't be more fitting that the planets in this Grand Trine include our goddess Venus, the warrior Mars, and a taskmaster Saturn. Okay, so you know I love when the maths. And without even knowing anything more about these placements or astrology, you can already tell that there's an element of commitment and accountability to balance masculine and feminine energies. It's literally written in the stars with this Grand Trine Water. So since we've already mentioned her a few times, we'll start with the Queen Goddess Venus at 11 Scorpio. As we've discussed many times over, Scorpio is Pluto ruled, so its energy deals with excavation and transformation. I like to think that Venus, the goddess of balance, harmony, and beauty, gets to bring a softer, compassionate, and empathetic side to shadow work when she's in Scorpio. She knows there's imbalance, and at the moon degree, we get to observe our feelings and intuitions and monitor for the imbalances to make conscious change, which is essentially what brings light to the shadow and brings out the beauty in its lessons. Scorpio and Pluto transits can often feel difficult because they show you darkness. But I want to remind you here that darkness is not haunting us and it's not where we're meant to stay. We get to bring light to it and heal. Phoenix energy is the name of the game. So while Venus is transiting a sign like Scorpio, disconnect and imbalances in our lives may be brought to our awareness. Situations where choices are incompatible with receiving a high quality of life, and also opportunities to move out of those patterns. Remember, every situation we find ourselves in has healing and lessons for us, even the hardest, most painful ones. If we keep our eyes on the prize of transformation, rather than victimizing ourselves around it, we can use the pain to make different, more aligned choices. I'm not saying it's easy to do all of that in the reality of our everyday lives, but holding on to that concept in the back of your heart, soul, and minds can really help you dig out of the hole of hopelessness and darkness should it present itself. Because while we shouldn't avoid facing the discomfort, we're also not meant to live there. We're meant to move through it. Because having imbalance and injustice present itself during this eclipse cycle, well, it's probable. Our warrior fire planet in the center of the Cancer Ocean at the Venus degree. This is actually a really aligned spot for Mars to be in, but it can also be uncomfortable, so he may not know it yet. The masculine energy of Mars needs something to fight for and structure to build on behalf of. And although I'm not one to beat up the ego, pursuits of building our world on greed and individuation have been part of the problem. In this moment, the waters of Cancer may have him feeling some type of way about where he has to face himself, and ironically, only the actual strongest men are truly able to face themselves with vulnerability, softness, compassion, self care, and the ideals of nurturing and being nurtured. Man, I almost feel like I can see Venus there in the shadow because of Scorpio and Venus degree. And she wants to caretake him so bad because that's her nature. But part of this rebalance is on the masculine to choose self-care and to nurture himself and not depend on the feminine to do the emotional labor for him. Because that's part of how we created the imbalance in the first place. While it's hard for the feminine to not caretake others, this energy wants us to liberate ourselves from doing and focus more on being. Feminine energy is emotional and healing by nature. We don't do the work for others, but rather we do it for ourselves, and we support through modeling and holding non-judgmental space for them in doing the work for themselves. We can stand as a beacon of healing and light for that, without taking it on as our job. So now we look to Saturn, the taskmaster, at 15 degrees Pisces. In retrograde, it's almost like he's a lighthouse, watching, keeping them accountable for where they need to be independent and where they get to come together for the betterment of humanity. And remember, this is an inside-out job, so we are all under the same sky and facing similar challenges. Saturn in Pisces wants us to take accountability and to heal our spirituality. But in this trine, and as a foreshadow to North Node Pisces come January, it's specifically preparing us to be responsible for how the masculine and feminine have harmed each other, but also how we will in turn heal each other. So basically, this entire chart is a fucking love story. I can't tell you how many people I'm literally seeing these challenges play out through right now. Nearly every single person I talk to is on some level being shown struggles and imbalances in either external or internal relationships, and for many of us, both during this eclipse cycle. My feminine goddesses are being shown where they've martyred themselves and given too much of themselves away in order to support the masculine in his often misguided endeavors. Within relationships, I'm seeing a lot of codependency issues, chasing of men who are emotionally and spiritually unavailable and unwilling to face themselves, lowering self-worth to make a relationship work. I mean, I could probably go on for like 10 more minutes in the different ways this can manifest for feminine energies. But the key is, we can't be both the motivation and the action. It's a recipe for burnout where we lose connection to ourselves and to our abundant, creative, healing energy force. We cannot keep doing the work for men who won't do it for themselves because their fear has them busy trying to escape through either disappearing or creating self-serving side quests. And meanwhile, I'm also seeing men floundering in the water. Ghosting when things get emo and too real seems to be at an all-time high right now. And for the ones who do face their emotions head on, they don't necessarily yet have the coping and processing skills to move through that. And they end up emasculating themselves and drowning in their feels, which leads to low self-worth, lack of motivation, inability to take action. Then inevitably, the cycle starts over again. So honestly, ladies, if it's not about consciousness, healing, equality, what is the feminine actually supporting by doing this work for the masculine? I'll tell you. We're supporting and participating in our own suffering and being part of the problem. But this eclipse is showing us that underneath it all, it's the feminine that gets to be the solution. And Saturn is here trying to keep those energies in check, reminding women that facing our emotions is our strength and a gift that we get to share with the masculine. But we are receivers, so it's not us doing the work for them, but being the necessary mirror and beacon so that they can face themselves and bring light to their shadows with compassion and without judgment in order to move through the water and build a better world for all of us. And Saturn is reminding men that the real goal is to be brave and face yourself in a loving and nurturing way, moving through any anger that comes up in a healthy manner, without turning away and without abandoning yourself. And doing this in order to create a safer world for the feminine energy to re-enter the equation. She is not the enemy here to be shunned, drained, or relied on for action. Instead, she's the purpose. And when guided by the sole purpose of creating safety for vulnerability and equality, both within ourselves and within the world at large, we start making choices that ultimately create more peace, harmony, balance, and flow, the exact ideals of Venus herself. Because remember, the trine that we talked about in last week's episode about the kite remains very much intact, basically until Pluto goes direct and breaks it up. That's weeks of energy pointing to Neptune and Pisces. There is major healing of our collective karma and faith in each other on offer here. And we do it through Pluto and Capricorn doing the grunt work of showing us what prevents our future forward vision, part of which involves removing and transforming our mixed up, antiquated ideals around relationships and the roles we play, both within ourselves and with each other. And this is further supported through Uranus and Taurus, shocking us into seeing all the ways we are blocking our highest quality of life, so that we can transform ourselves, each other, and the world. So we can once again choose the ideals of Venus as our guiding light. All of those planets still in retrograde too. So without realizing it, that trine holding for this long may actually be one of the most instrumental and powerful astrological aspects of the entire year. In no uncertain terms, it's telling us that all of these concepts need further review because the transformation we're taking on when Pluto moves into Aquarius is world-changing. It's bigger than us, but it also starts with us. This is the potential of quantum collective consciousness healing. Because remember, when it's all said and done, this is a Venus-ruled solar eclipse chart, transforming the identity of yourself and the world to align with the ideals of the healing goddess feminine energies. So when you put all these pieces together, we are ultimately being guided and transforming relationships on all levels in order to identify with each other in a more loving way. First, the relationship we have with ourselves, our self-love, our self-worth, and self-care, our inner masculine and feminine, the sun and the moon, how we care for ourselves and nurture ourselves and restore our internal balance through consciousness of our emotional process. It's an inside-out job, but with a really defined purpose to rebalance, restore, and ultimately expand our beliefs around our interpersonal relationships with each other. This energy begs for us to remember how to work together as a team and use our true strengths and stop being so scared about how much we need and ultimately want each other. Who doesn't want a love story? We get to stop focusing on hating the darker sides of ourselves and each other and start lovingly holding each other accountable to how we ultimately come back together and bring the most natural parts of ourselves and who we are into balance again for the benefit of the collective at large. So we can really start living that high quality of life filled with love, beauty, balance, justice, and flow. The one we all dream of. The one that's our birthright. We get to peel off all these layers of wounded energies, misguided structure, power struggles, misogyny, martyrdom, and stop fighting over the ways we've hurt each other. To stop chasing our tails and start reaching for each other again. Start forgiving and rebuilding and accepting each other, all with the greater ultimate purpose to transform and rebalance society and humanity. To remember how to be the love and beauty that we already are and always have been, being simultaneously humbled and empowered by the magical journey of being an incarnated human in this space and time in the multiverse. The goal is simply more love. So let it flow, 'cause it won't stop. Thank you so much for joining me today and watching this episode and trusting my guidance. As part of my mission to follow my bliss and concurrently be of service to others, I'd love to help you crack the code of your own astrological chart and uncover the hidden guidance within it. Whether you're interested in live readings, written analysis, or even personalized videos like this one tailored to your specific chart, I'm here to support your journey. Stay connected with me by subscribing here on YouTube and give me a follow on Instagram for regular cosmic insights and content. Plus, check out my website for some fun, customizable astro merchant gifts to rep your unique astrological code. And remember, let it flow, because it won't stop.